नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णुः प्रचोदयात्।
People have heard me say this before, that the very heart of Sanatana Dharma is yoga. Yoga meaning actual spiritual practice, the actual spiritual discipline. Because as I've said before, a spirituality that is not practiced is a spirituality that is better left alone. You know? If you're not going to practice a spirituality, why bother with it? Why play with it? Why even do anything with it? Why speculate about it if it's not something that's going to be alive? You know, it's one thing to read books. It's one thing to attend lectures. It's one thing to internally identify yourself with something, identify yourself with a teaching, agree, disagree with what someone says, with what a book says, etc., etc., etc. That's all nice. That's something that anyone can do. That's something that a distanced professor who just cares about tenure can do. You know, I've talked about this in the past. I know dozens and dozens of professors of religious studies who read and read and read and read about religion. They're experts, but they don't practice anything. It's dead. It's dead to them. Thus, even with Sanatana Dharma, to merely know a lot of stuff is not enough. To just read, to just attend things is not enough without practice. Why is this the case? Because spirituality is alive. It's not a dead concept. It's not a rock. It's not an object. It's not something there for us to just use. Rather, it's something that we must respect. Something that we must respect. We must respect our own spiritual life. We must respect the spiritual lives and teachings of hundreds and hundreds of generations of people who came before us, who gave of themselves, sacrificed of themselves, in order to pass down this knowledge to us. And if we treat it like something that's dead, we're being disrespectful. We know that even in our daily relations. If you treat someone you claim to love as an object, are you not being disrespectful? Instead, you treat them as a living being, as someone who is as alive as you are, as someone who is as worthy of dignity as you are. Well, by extension, we also need to treat spirituality and our own spiritual life in such a way. So, for spiritual life to have meaning, it must be spiritual life. It must be alive. Thus, when we speak about Sanatana Dharma is infinitely more than just a collection of nice ideas. It is meant to be practiced, lived, in such a way that we know that we are being transformed for the better, and in such a way that as a result of that very transformation that we are going through, anyone who comes into our presence also begins to be transformed. Now, Sanatana Dharma, in practice, is yoga. Thus, the heart of Sanatana Dharma is yoga. The heart, in turn, of yoga is meditation. And I've spoken about that much in the past, so I won't go very deeply into that. Yoga is meditation. This is the very definition that Patanjali even gives for yoga, that it is meditation. It is a controlling, a stilling of the modifications of chitta, of the mind substance. That's Patanjali, who is the king of yoga. Thus, the heart of yoga is meditation. The heart, in turn, of meditation is mantra. Mantra. This is why, especially in those traditions that indeed have a very developed system of yoga, that is certainly all of Sanatana Dharma, but also Jainism, but also Buddhism, and especially Tibetan Buddhism, where it's been kept to its purest form. As Buddhism proceeds east, it becomes a little bit less pure, there's less emphasis on the yoga aspect, just for geographical reasons. Tibet is essentially right next to Nepal and India. Well, what we see is that mantra is crucial in every single tradition of Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism. There is no yogic tradition in which mantra is not central. Why is this the case? Why is this the case? Many reasons, of which we won't go into every single one, but we'll go into maybe a few of the more important ones of why mantra is crucial and central. What is meditation? What is meditation? In the most generic of explanations, meditation is focused awareness upon one object. That's it. That's meditation in the smallest of nutshells. Spoken of in, again, the most general, broadest of ways. That's meditation. Now, of course, this begs the question. That object of meditation upon which we choose to focus is crucial. You know? Because in actuality, we're always focusing on some object, aren't we? But most objects, of course, get us into trouble. Because what do we focus on? Those things that we think we want. That's our object of meditation. Oh, that new car that I really want. This person I think I'm in love with. You know, what I need to do to make more money. We're focusing on an object, you see. But it's not an object that's going to liberate us. Focusing on that BMW is not going to liberate us. You see, if you could just focus on anything, well, we would all be liberated because everyone's focusing on something. Thus, all objects are not the same. We know that. That's, you know, kindergarten. That's kindergarten spirituality. We know that, you know. Rather, of our free will, when we come to true spirituality, we choose to focus on that which will liberate us, which necessarily is something that's transcendent. We choose to focus on the divine. Okay? That being said, of course, how do you focus on the divine? Well, the divine is everywhere, isn't it? So let me focus on everywhere. Will that work? No. We don't have a mind that can encompass everywhere. That's a silly statement. So while it's nice to say, oh, the divine is everywhere, that's nice. That's very nice. However, my mind is not everywhere. And more, this is our problem, is that while the divine is everywhere, we're not even aware of the divine being anywhere. That's our problem. That's our ego. The divine is everywhere, yes, but we ourselves are in such illusion, we're not aware of the divine being anywhere. Thus, we need very practically, to focus on something that will link us up with the divine. Of all the various things that we can focus on, the most powerful is indeed mantra. Mantra. And I'm not going to go, as you've seen already, probably, not too much into philosophy, but very practical. I'm going to speak about this very practically. Why is mantra the best way to focus on the divine? Just practically speaking, it's something we have access to. It's something where most of us have a voice, most of us have ears that work. We have the ability to produce sound vibration, and of course, having a mind, we have the ability to sit, produce that sound vibration, and focus our awareness, our mind, upon that sound vibration. So it's very practical, very easy way to focus on the divine. Now, mantra, narrowing this down more and more and more. The heart of, the heart of, the heart of, the heart of. Now we're talking about the heart of meditation, mantra. What is the heart of mantra? The heart of mantra has to be understood thus. All mantras are not the same. All anything is not the same. You know, for anyone who has discernment, we know this, of course. All anything in any category is not the same. Well, in the same way, all mantra is not the same. You know, the Vedic scriptures are very clear about this. There are mantras, for example, that you use to cure snakebite in the Yajurveda. There are mantras revealed in the Yajurveda to cure snakebite. We're going to meditate on this to know God? Of course not. That's silly. Mantras are keys. They are keys. If you want to get into your home and you're going to use your car key, are you going to get into your home? You can try, but you'll end up having to break through the window. You know? If you're going to use a mantra meant to cure snakebite to know the divine, well, good luck. You'll have to break through the window, except there is no window in this case. So, what is the very heart of mantra? the very heart of mantra, specifically, if indeed it is our clear and sincere purpose to know the divine, are those mantras that focus on the divine. Again, this is kind of spiritual kindergarten. Does that not make sense? If you want to know X, focus on that which will give you X, not which will give you Y. Very simple. Very simple. Spirituality, really, understood practically, is very simple. All the philosophical fluff is fun too, and important. But truthfully, if we have sincerity, the amount that we really need to know is very simple, and not a lot. So, mantra. We wish to know the divine. Within the Vedic scriptures are revealed a myriad of mantras that are comprised very specifically of the names of the divine, which it is understood according to Vyakarana, which is the Vedic school of Sanskrit grammar. It's understood that the names of the divine, unlike other names, unlike other words, unlike other grammatical structures, unlike even other mantras, the names of the divine are non-different from the divine. See, that's not the case with other nama, with other words, with other names. The word nama means name in Sanskrit and many other languages, including several European languages. This is a chair. Okay. What's this in Nepali? Okay. Who knows any other languages besides English and Nepali? Huh?
French.
Okay. Very good. Do you know Dutch? No, I'm just kidding. Any other languages? Okay, well, you get the idea. There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of words for this object. Thus, the name and the object are not the same. Why? What is it? It's a material object. It's temporary. Well, it's a material object. It's temporary, something that's very temporary. Thus, the name and the object are not necessarily one, because it's material. Is God material? Of course not. God is not material, God is spiritual. This being the case, God's name and God are one, because neither is temporal. Thus, when we meditate upon specifically mantras that are the name of God, then we are doing meditation such that we are now linked with transcendence, communing with transcendence. So this is the nature of mantra. This is how mantra works. Explained just very, very briefly. Now again, mantras, like words, are not all the same. Are words all the same? You know, if I call this glass, if I call this house, if I call this cat, can we just say, oh, it all means the same thing? Well, we couldn't live in such a world. We know that they're all pointing to different things. We know that they all do different things. Okay? Similarly, mantra has different sorts of effects upon the individual. The mantras that we focus on are all very specifically transcendental mantras. Mantras that are meant not to cure snakebite, but to elevate us in such a way that we can experience the divine. Those are the only mantras that I ever use and that we ever use. So that being the case, I want us to go through some of the mantras that are some of the more important mantras that we have. The first one, and what I'll do is I'll give an explanation first, and then we'll do them all together. Okay? The first one, of course, is the Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Very important mantra. Even for a lot of people who, let's say, maybe just take a yoga class once in a while and maybe don't know a lot about Vedic culture very deeply, they've probably heard this mantra, because even in yoga classes often they'll either start or end with this mantra. So it's a very well-known mantra. But let me go a little bit deeper into what this mantra is. First, the mantra scripturally is found everywhere. It's found all throughout the Vedas, the Upanishads, many different places. It's one of the more prevalent mantras. Often passages, if not entire Upanishads, at least passages of the Upanishads will either begin and or end with this mantra. And this is the significance of it. Essentially it's saying absolute peace, peace, peace. In fact, it's sometimes referred to as the peace mantra. But peace, of course, in what sense? Peace in every sense. In every sense. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is for a very important reason. Of course, materially, when we tend to think of the word peace, we tend to think, what is peace? The absence of war. You know, we tend to think of, interestingly, peace as a negation. Peace as a negation. We tend to think of peace as a negative thing. What's peace? Well, no one's killing each other. That's peace. Well, it certainly does mean that, but much more. Spiritually, the significance of this idea of shanti is shanti as a positive attribute of both God and of the soul. So peace is something that is positive. Peace is something that exists, that is very real. It's not just the absence of violence. Okay? So when we are invoking peace, what we are doing is actually invoking one of the divine powers and attributes of God, and really of ourselves by extension. You know, so what we're doing is bringing out an aspect truly of ourselves by saying Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay? So with that, why don't we just practice this for a little while, and just a few times. What we'll do is first just be in silence for about a minute or so, and then that will be followed by all of us together saying the mantra. And let's begin. And everyone together. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Again. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And we can open our eyes. Good. The next mantra that we will discuss is what is called the Tiru mantra, the Om Namo Narayanaya mantra. Of all the various mantras that we do, this is definitely the most important of all of them. This is the primary mantra that we meditate upon. I just want to talk for just about 2 minutes about what's the significance of this mantra, why it's important. And truthfully, there's a lot to be said about this mantra. This is a mantra that I could really talk about for about 4 hours. Believe it or not, 3 words. But 2 minutes or so we'll try to do this in. First, this is like all the mantras that we do, and what constitutes real mantras by definition. This is a mantra that is revealed in the Vedic scriptures, and very specifically in one of the 108 Upanishads, the Narayana Upanishad. This is an Upanishad that's available in English translation. In fact, it's even online. You can look that up. Narayana Upanishad. It's one of the 108 Upanishads. It's a short Upanishad, very short. In fact, you can read it in maybe 5 minutes or so, something like that. Some of these Upanishads are long, some short. This is where we first find the Narayana Upanishad. So it is a revealed mantra. This is where we find this, this mantra, is in the Narayana Upanishad. What is the significance of this mantra? This mantra is what is considered to be a perfectly formed mantra for several reasons. First, it contains the important element of Om within it. And Om is really one of the most important mantras. Believe it or not, this Om Namo Narayanaya, we know esoterically, is actually a little bit more important than even Om. And I'll explain why in a minute. This will just come about naturally. First, Om is contained within the mantra itself. Om is extremely important because it is our direct access to the divine. The divine, God, being omnipresent, being available everywhere in all of reality, and more, sustaining reality. The way that this occurs is through sound vibration, and very specifically this mantra Om. So, if we were to be able to literally hear the presence of God upholding reality in the universe, what we would hear is A-U-M, Om. And it's A-U-M, it's not Om. That's a mistranslation. If you know the Sanskrit, it is A-U-M. Is that not right? In Devanagari, it is A-U-M. Again, for people who take the Sanskrit class, you know, you'll learn the alphabet and you will never spell this O-M again. It is A-U-M. That's a mistranslation into, into the Latin alphabet, into what we call English. The second element is also very important, the Namaha, which becomes Namo grammatically. The Namo is the devotional element, and it is the element which unites us as Atman, as spirit, with Paramatman, with God. Okay? Why is that the case? Why does it unite us? Because we are united with God through devotion, through love. What is one of the many powers of love? It brings together. You see? It does the opposite of what it means to hate someone. When you hate someone, what are you doing? You're causing distance, building a wall between yourself and the other. Love tears down that wall. So this is why it is specifically through love, through devotion, that we can know the divine. Love is a nice word. It's a 4-letter word, but it's just a word. What does it mean to practice love? It means to have communion. It means to be united with that which we love. If we fall in love with someone, what does that mean? Oh, I've fallen in love with you, therefore go on the other side of the earth, please. No, we want to be with the person, correct? Love means union. Well, in the same way, if we want to know the divine, if we want to have communion with the divine, that has to be done through devotion, through love, which is the opposite of hate, which is the opposite of that separation. So this is the Namaha, the Namo element, where we are saying, I offer my devotion unto you. I offer my respects, I offer myself unto you. Okay? Then, finally, the Narayanaya. The actual word is Narayana. Narayana. That is the name of God, meaning the sustainer of all reality, the sustainer of all beings. Grammatically in Sanskrit, Narayana becomes Narayanaya because you're saying to Narayana. It's what's called grammatically the dative. The dative. It means to Narayana. So, the element of that word that's of importance is the name, Narayana. Narayana is one of the highest names of the divine. The reason why it's one of the highest names of the divine is because it, more than any other word, explains what precisely is our relation to the divine. What is Narayana? What is God? Literally the sustainer. The sustainer. Now, why is that of significance? This is the relationship that everything, every person, literally perceivable or conceivable in existence has with God. God sustains us. It is as a result of this divine reality, this absolute, that we have existence, and that we have the ability to even be, that we have the ability to literally be, what to speak of anything else, what to speak of to do. Thus, this is a very significant name, Narayana, Narayana, the sustainer of all reality. Thus, all together, Om Namo Narayanaya means I offer my devotion, I offer my respects, I offer myself to that Absolute who is the sustainer of all reality. And that is Narayana. It's a beautiful mantra, and it's a mantra that is the most effective of all mantras. The mantra was kept secret until roughly the 12th century, and now it's available to all of humanity. Today there are no secret mantras. At least there shouldn't be. So, with that explanation, let's practice a little bit of the Om Namo Narayana mantra. And we'll do this all together. And we'll just do it a few times. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. And we can open our eyes. All right. Now that we've recited this mantra together, just for a minute or two, I want to explain how it's done in japa, because it's done differently. And what I mean by japa is personal meditation. In personal meditation, you don't say it quite as slowly. You can. There are no hard and fast rules. But really, in personal meditation, you should say it either as fast or as slow as is natural to you. And generally speaking, in meditation, you tend to say it a little bit faster. You know, I definitely do. With mantra meditation, of course, there are three primary ways in which we do mantra meditation. Either out loud, so that you and others can hear it. That's the official definition. Or else, two, you say it out loud, but in such a way that only you can hear it. So you kind of whisper it to yourself. And then three, you don't say it out loud. Rather, you recite the mantra in your mind. And of course, with that progression, it becomes increasingly more beneficial, but also increasingly more difficult. You know, so this is why I always recommend to everyone that at first you definitely say the mantra out loud. And when I say at first, I'm talking about, let's say, minimally maybe for the first year. Of course, it completely varies from person to person. Some people are ready to begin saying the mantra in their mind immediately. So this is just a general principle, that this is the best way to begin, is by saying the mantra out loud, because of course, again, it's easier. It's easier because you're hearing it better. You know, you're engaging the senses while you're saying the mantra. Whereas to simply say it in the mind without any inclusion of the senses is very difficult, and you have to be a good meditator. You have to be extremely good to be able to focus on that mantra without hearing it. verbally, without saying it verbally and hearing it with your ears. So in meditation, once a person is initiated, they use beads. Before initiation, it's not necessary to use beads. And in fact, for myself, I take a very orthodox approach to this. Some groups will just kind of, throw beads at you. Yes, take beads, take beads. I don't believe in that. The tradition is that you get beads once you're initiated, because if you're not initiated, there's no reason to have beads. The entire idea of having beads is to keep count, because you have a vow. You have a vow to say a certain number of mantras, and if you don't have that vow, you don't really need beads. However, what I'm about to explain works regardless of whether you have beads or not. And I'm just going to use beads myself. The way that you say the mantra, again, initially is out loud. You tend to say it a little bit faster than we just did. You don't worry about the breath. Actually, with this mantra, or really with any mantra that you say repeatedly in practice. Interestingly, if you're meditating well, the breath just naturally adjusts to the mantra. So you don't have to worry, should I breathe in a certain amount and then breathe out a certain amount as I'm saying the mantra? No, don't worry about that. If you're doing that, you're not meditating, if you're worrying about that. Instead, you're supposed to focus exclusively on the sound vibration with no other distraction. And to focus on, problems like that, how am I breathing? That's a distraction. The breath will just naturally adjust itself to the mantra. So I'm just going to give a demonstration of how I personally do japa mantra meditation. Om Namo Narayana, 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 Om Namo Narayana. And like that. Again, everyone's different. When you do the meditation, you may say it a little faster, you may say it a little slower, you may say it a little louder. That's fine. That doesn't really matter so much. The important thing is to say it, to do the mantra, focus on the mantra. Okay. So with that, let's go on to our next mantra, and that is the Lakshmi mantra. Om Shri Mahalakshmiye Namaha. And the next few mantras I'm going to talk about a little bit less, just due to time, and because really it's the Om Namo Narayanaya, which is the primary mantra that we focus on. So with this mantra, what is called the Lakshmi mantra, Om Shri Mahalakshmiye Namaha. With this mantra, we are focusing, of course, on Lakshmi Devi. And as I say this, we are not focusing on what is the, unfortunately, misinformed Hindu conception, and now conception among many Westerners who practice yoga. We're not focusing on, let's say, the goddess of wealth. That's not what we're focusing on. Is that an aspect of Lakshmi? Yes, it's an aspect of Lakshmi. It's the aspect which, of course, in our very materialistic day and age is stressed, but it's not really what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the person and the Shakti that is Lakshmi Devi. What is Lakshmi? In actuality, what she represents is the feminine aspect of the divine. We know that in Sanatana Dharma, the concept of God is very different than in the Western world. The concept of God is that God is not man. God is not some old man in the sky, as everyone loves to say. But then God is not some old woman up in the sky either. Rather, God transcends materiality. God transcends gender. However, metaphysically, there is gender. Not biological gender, okay? But metaphysical gender, which is something radically different. You have many different forms of gender. You have linguistic gender. You have gender in nouns. Gender in nouns is not biological gender. Okay? When we use the word gender, unfortunately, not being very conversant with the word, we tend to think man, woman. The word gender means many, many different things. Metaphysically speaking, the inner nature of the divine is such that God contains both the masculine and the feminine metaphysically. Okay? What does this mean practically for us? That God is both man and woman. That God is both God, goddess. Okay? From our perspective. Okay? Yet at the same time, God is one. So, God is Shakti, Shaktiman, to use the technical term. Shakti, Shaktiman. Shakti means the energy, and Shaktiman is that conduit of energy. Okay? This is why, even for people who know almost nothing about Hinduism, people will notice when they visit any Hindu temple on earth, when they see images very often, what will they see? They'll see Radha Krishna. They'll see Sita Rama. They'll see Lakshmi Narayana. You see, it's less often that you see Krishna just alone. You almost never see Radha just alone. It's always Radha Krishna, Sita Rama, etc. It's because they are the dual aspects of the Absolute. In the same way that in Christianity you have the Trinity, three beings, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, who are recognized as three as they function, so functionally, but in actuality they're one. In the same way, Radha Krishna or Lakshmi Narayana, which are all just names of God, and we'll deal with Lakshmi Narayana specifically, functionally can be seen as two beings, but in actuality it's one being. One being functioning as two. So when we are reciting this Lakshmi mantra, what we are meditating on very specifically is indeed the feminine aspect of the divine, Lakshmi Devi. Now, with this understanding, Lakshmi Devi is not merely one of the quote-unquote goddesses of Hinduism. No, that's not the understanding of the scriptures. That's not the understanding of people who understand authentic, traditional Sanatana Dharma, not as Westerners would love to have it, but as it has been practiced for millions of years by those people who own the tradition because they live it. Okay? For these individuals, they understand that Lakshmi Devi is God. Lakshmi Devi is God in the same way that Narayana is God. For those individuals who want to go much deeper into what is the exact nature of Lakshmi Devi with scriptural quotations, etc., if you go to dharmacentral.com, if you go to the article section, I have an article there very specifically about Lakshmi Devi. Just look around for it, you'll find it. We have about 200 articles on there now, so it's getting a little bulky, but you'll find it. So that is the nature of this mantra, is essentially communing with the person of Lakshmi Devi, very specifically. All right? So, that being said, let us now do the Lakshmi mantra a little bit. And everyone together. Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha. 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 And we can open our eyes. Very good. The next mantra that we'll be discussing is another very important mantra, a Vedic mantra, known variously as either the Gayatri mantra or the Brahma Gayatri mantra. Brahma not meaning the god Brahma, who is the creator of the universe, not referring to him. Brahma is just a grammatical form of the word Brahman, Brahman meaning God. So this is the mantra through which we know Brahman, the Absolute. Okay? Just a few words about this mantra before we recite it. The Gayatri mantra, the Brahma Gayatri, is revealed in all the four Vedas, Riga, Tarva, Yajur, and Samaveda. So all of the four Vedas. It's found in all of them. It's found in other scriptures as well. It is a mantra that traditionally is said by Brahmanas, by individuals who have Brahmana initiation. Truthfully, the mantra can be said by anyone, but Brahmanas specifically have a vow that they must say the mantra. Okay? But again, anyone can say the mantra. That's why we often do say the mantra every once in a while at different events. The purpose of the mantra is this. It is a really secondary mantra. It is secondary to the Om Namo Narayanaya. And it is a mantra, in fact all the Gayatri mantras are mantras that are designed to specifically help us in meditation. So this is why you'll notice, for anyone conversant with any of the traditions of Sanatana Dharma, there aren't really many traditions that focus specifically on Gayatri mantras as the primary mantra that you meditate upon. Rather, you meditate on other sorts of mantras. Gayatri mantras are there for support in your meditation. Okay? The idea of the Gayatri mantra specifically, and truthfully this mantra also we could talk about for 4 hours, the significance of each and every word, but we won't. To state this as succinctly as possible, this is the idea of the Gayatri mantra. It's understood that the universe in which we're living in consists of 14 planetary systems. Okay? There is the Earth system in which we're situated now, and this one planet is not the only planet that's like this. There are many planets that are similar to this planet in many ways. This is an entire level of planetary systems. Below us, there are 6 terrible systems where things just become progressively worse and worse. It's very, very difficult. Then above us, there are 7 planetary systems where progressively things get quote-unquote better and better. This is what some people associate with the word heaven. Heaven. The general term for all these higher planetary systems is Svarga. But then in this Brahma Gayatri, several of these systems are mentioned. Okay? So essentially this is what is occurring. As you're saying the Gayatri mantra, what you're doing is really praying to God for 2 things. First, that God will illumine our minds and help us in our meditation, thus Dhimahi, which is a part of the mantra. The other thing that we're doing with this mantra specifically is in our meditation, both symbolically, but more than that, in actuality, internally, we are raising ourselves through the upper planetary systems with the idea of ultimately going to the divine. So that's the idea. And more, and this will help us to truly understand the significance of this, each planetary system corresponds to a subtler and subtler aspect of ourselves. One planetary system corresponds to the mind, one to the intellect, etc., as we go all the way on up. So this is a very, very interesting mantra, a very mystical mantra that does many different things at the same time. But again, it's not the primary mantra. You can certainly recite this mantra anytime. It is especially empowered with Brahmana initiation. Once you are initiated into the mantra, then you are empowered in such a way that the mantra will have a tremendous effect on you. Okay? So that being said, let's all say the Brahma Gayatri mantra a few times. And everyone together. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. And we can open our eyes. The reason why this mantra is called Gayatri is because that's the meter, the name of the meter in which you recite it. And in fact, there isn't one, there are several Gayatri meters that you can recite this in. This one will be, the one we just did is a little bit less recognized because it's one that is less known. The reason why that's the case is because most priests know the meters that are used specifically in ritual. The meter that I use is the meter that's used in yogic meditation, which is a different meter. So sometimes I'll even surprise priests. I'll say the mantra in this meter and they'll say, oh, that's interesting, I haven't heard this before. And I'll say, yes, because you were trained to be a priest, not a yogi. If you understand yogic meters, they're a little bit different. You know, so just to use an example with the first mantra, it will sometimes confuse people who are used to Hindu temple culture, because the way you say the mantra, the way priests say it, will be Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, very fast. That's because they're saying it in ritual. You don't meditate on it that way. Rather, the way you meditate on it is much slower in the way that we usually do it. Same thing with this specific Gayatri meter that we do with the Gayatri mantra. It's meant for meditation, not ritual. Okay, just a little technical something that those people in the audience who know meter very well will appreciate. Next, again, there are many different Gayatri mantras, not just the one that we just did, which is the most famous, the Brahma Gayatri. Rather, there are Gayatris associated with many of the deities, many of the divinities, many of the different names of God. So another important Gayatri mantra that we tend to do is the Narayana Gayatri, which you have written here. Let's see, and it's the very last one. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. This is another Gayatri mantra that is focusing very specifically on the divine. This mantra is even more esoteric than the Brahma Gayatri mantra. And again, due to lack of time, I don't want to go very deep into it. This could be an 8-hour talk. That's how esoteric this mantra is. This is a Gayatri mantra that is the purest of the pure. The idea of this mantra is that we recite this mantra naturally. It arises within the soul at the time of liberation, when it comes to the point where we no longer are even concerned about the planetary systems of this world, and when we have already transcended materiality. Thus, you'll notice in the various elements of this mantra, there is nothing material within it. With the other mantra, there is reference again to planes within the material world, but not with this mantra, not with the Narayana Gayatri. It is focusing exclusively on meditation upon the divine. So this is a mantra that is indeed especially helpful in the same way that the last mantra was helpful, except even more so. The last mantra, Brahma Gayatri, is helpful with meditation in general. Okay? This mantra is helpful in prapatti, in surrender to the divine. So in other words, in the highest level of meditation of complete union with the divine. So that is about the smallest nutshell I can give of an explanation of this mantra. Again, there's a lot more to be said, but practice is everything. So let's practice a little bit. All right. And everyone together. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodhayatam. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodhayatam. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodhayatam. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. Jai Shriman Narayana, Jai Shriman Narayana, Jai Shriman Narayana. Om Hri Om. And when we're ready, we can open our eyes.
Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat.